Recording progress.
I'm going to begin with a brief poem by E. Marion, in tribute to a very hungry cat. It's called How to Eat a Poem. Don't be polite, bite it. Pick it up with your fingers and lick the juice that may run down your chin. It is ready and right now, wherever you are. You do not need a knife or a fork or a spoon or plate or napkin or tablecloth, for there is no fork or stem or rind or pit or seed or skin to throw away. For my entire adult life, I have loved things whose content and form reflect each other. There's even a term for it these days, meta, before Facebook took over that word. Something is meta when it's about itself. The first example of this that I fell in love with was the four-note opera by Tom Johnson, which premiered in 1972. It is, as advertised, built on only 4 notes. The libretto of the opera, the lyrics of the songs, is about Yahweh. The soprano part begins, and I'm sorry I'm definitely music for this, but the soprano part begins, I am the soprano, and I sing high. The contralto sings, I have a nice phrase, and being kind of in that vocal range myself, I gather it probably goes, I have a nice phrase. The bass chimes in with his worries about coming in on time. And the tenor, ever the butt of jokes in music, grouses that he has only one aria, and he's in such good voice too. So it was with some enjoyment that I began to write this sermon about creativity. Writing sermons is one of my major creative outlets these days. So I was writing about a process that I was actually undergoing while writing it. It was pretty hard. But before I disappeared into my own navel, I thought of some images about what creativity is like, as I experience. And I've read enough about what others say about their own creative process in many different fields to know that, as always, I am not alone. I hope you too will recognize some of your own feelings in what I have to say, whether you write, knit, cook, paint, or work in whatever way to bring something new into being. I have 3 images today: a boat rocking in rough waters, a person giving birth, and a caterpillar in a cocoon. And I'm choosing sermon writing as my own creative activity, the one I'll use to talk honestly about the confusing and frustrating process of making something in this world. Because it is all that and more. Please, don't imagine that there is someone, somewhere, who blissfully envisions a creative product and then heads right there, step after step, until it comes out just the way it always would. And please don't imagine that you are the only one who makes a mess of things, who gets lost on the way, who fears that all your effort will come to nothing, who wonders why it's so hard. Please. Every single time I write a sermon, and I think there have been 112 of them now, there comes a point where I just don't know where it's going or how to get there. Now, as it happens, this point I had thrown out the original beginnings of this sermon. And these words you're hearing are from the moments I was rewriting it and hoping the whole thing would fit together, especially because it was just before 4 o'clock on Saturday afternoon. I felt those familiar sensations. My head felt foggy and a little swollen. My stomach felt a little acidy. I was quite confused, and I don't like being confused. I was taught that it is good to know things and bad to feel at sea. But if you want to take a voyage, you have to be at sea. And I have a big problem with seasickness. Now that's literal as well as a metaphor. About 10 years ago, a friend of mine got married on a boat in Lake Michigan. I spent the last 2 hours of the party huddled on the sofa praying for death. It took 3 people, it took 3 people to help me get off that boat. I have not been on the water again. So I like dry land. I don't like being tossed around, not knowing where I am or which way is up. If this is my blue boat home, which we will sing shortly, I need some grounds. But how else to get to where I'm going, from idea to sermon, in the hope that something I say will mean something to you? Where I'm going next is my second metaphor, giving birth. When the idea for a sermon develops, it becomes something inside me that wants to come out. Anyone who has ever given birth knows what that feels like. When something wants to be born, there is no stopping it. So time after time, song after song, sermon after sermon, I need to go through the terrible uncertainty, the dreaded confusion, and sometimes the plain awful pain of creation. We all do. And yet, we always forget, don't we? There's a theory that people who are giving birth forget the pain of labor, or at least it softens the memory. Otherwise, the theory goes, everyone would be an only child. Well, that's funny, and I am the mother of an only child. Who is the mother of an only child? Throughout most of history, there was very little choice in the matter. But I think it is true that a certain amount of forgetfulness is built into the way we operate. The life force that flows within us and around us will use whatever it can. It throws a veil over the pain to entice us back into the big game, creation. Still, I am amazed that every time I am amazed at the struggle, the uncertainty, the pain of making something new. There's usually some point in the process where I think, why do I get myself into this? Like a person in labor, I have to pay attention to my gut to guide me through the creation. Literally, I look for a visceral feeling that tells me whether I've said everything that needs to be said for now, or whether there's more coming. Sometimes it's the quality of my breathing. Some of you may have the same sorts of feelings. There's always a physical sensation if I'm alert to it. And it took me years, well, seriously decades, to trust these feelings. I used to decide, today is the day I'll write this piece. Article, scene, lyric, whatever. And then I'd sit and struggle, producing nothing. Sometimes I sat for hours. Eventually, I got wise to the fact that simply because I decided, this little brain, that today was a writing day, it did not mean that whatever was waiting to be written was ready. It's a rare baby that's born on its due date. And I realized that the choice that I had really was to sit at the keyboard in pure frustration or forget it for that day and go do something else. Sooner or later, that first creative contraction would come. And I would rush to the computer or the legal pad, words spilling out of me. Then it would stop. And start again. It has its own rhythm. Think of what you do. Think of what you create. It does, doesn't it? It has its own rhythm. There's a time to press forward and a time to wait. And I believe we almost follow that rhythm. And I have never missed a deadline in my life. And then, whoa, what a relief! There's such joy when the task is done, when the baby lies in your arms, when you're back on the island. But why the pain? Why the confusion of creation? Is it really inevitable? A law of nature? What's going on during that process? And that brings us to my third metaphor, the caterpillar in the chrysalis. Most of us have probably been enchanted since childhood by the amazing metamorphoses of moths and butterflies. You start out with a weird, fuzzy caterpillar, which eats like crazy, just like one another, until one day it spins a casing in which it will transform into a fragile winged creature. And as was brought up before, if you're wondering what the difference is between a cocoon and a chrysalis, I looked it up for you beforehand, but some of you knew. Moths make cocoons, which are wrapped in silk. How elegant. Butterflies make chrysalises, or chrysalides, which is almost too much fun to say. Chrysalides. Now, while I too enjoyed this miracle, I never thought too much about what was actually happening inside that casing. I guess I assumed that the structure of the moth or butterfly was inside the caterpillar in some way, and that it shed its skin to let out the winged insects, sort of like a snake does. Then I found out what was actually going on. And it was something that I had never dreamed of. The caterpillar dissolves. Yeah. It turns into goo. It actually digests itself from the inside out. It literally eats its heart out, and every other part too. In what may be the ultimate act of recycling, the caterpillar breaks down its own body into a mass of undifferentiated cells called imaginal cells. Imaginal cells. I mean, really, I'll bring a metaphor to this. Imaginal cells, like stem cells, can become any type of tissue. They go back to the drawing board of life and recreate themselves to form the new body that will fly around your garden and fill up you. So the caterpillar curled in that chrysalis or cocoon literally becomes nothing but pure potential, just a mass of cells. What an astonishing faith it must have. What sustains it through the dark night of its soul, when perhaps it feels only the ruin and cannot imagine what it will become? Until the work is allowed to finish, and then the new creation breaks out with wings. Until we can say, we knew it all along, but did the caterpillar? I was listening not long ago to one of my favorite albums, Paul Simon's The Rhythm of the Saints, on Spotify. And at the end of the music that I know so thoroughly that it rings in my bones, there are several tracks of earlier versions of some of the songs, works in progress. It was charming. Not only hear well-known music done rather differently, but also to get a glimpse of Paul Simon's creative process. I've been a fan of his since I was 15 years old. That is quite a while. There was a track with just his voice and guitar before all the other musicians so wonderfully added their pieces. There was another song with extra verses that were weeded out before the final edit. How heartening, how delightful to peek inside the chrysalis of an artist I admire. But even then, I don't know what might have been his pain and his confusion, his doubts, and his exaltation. But still, I figured they were there. So, what do we do? I believe we have an inner need to create, all of us. There's a Jewish view that God created humans to finish God's work of calling the world into being. Whatever tools we're given to accomplish that work, we are driven to use them. Through the pain, through the confusion, through the uncertainty. We have to be willing, like the caterpillar. We have to be willing to let our ideas and even ourselves be obliterated, be liquefied. Because in creativity, we can't get there from fear. We have to risk. We have to let go of how we think things should be and let ourselves be led into the darkness. A light will come, but it won't be my light. It will be the light that belongs to all of us. In Greek myth, Apollo was the god of the arts, and he was also the sun god. I find that really interesting. To me, it says that creativity, courage, and discovery are the light that shines on all, that nourishes all life. Creation takes everything we can bring to it. Nothing goes to waste. Whether we work at art or simply the art of living, every experience can become part of the mix. Every happy accident becomes a shining sun. Trust, right? Trust the process. My harp teacher has been saying that to me for 6 years, and I'm finally ready to do it. Trust the pain. Trust whatever it is that creates through you, through me, through nature. It always feels like it's never going to happen, but somehow it always does. Please think about that in these dreadful times. And don't pick on yourself for not remembering. Don't feel bad about being frightened when you're just a blob of goo. I do not know why, but clearly it is meant to be this way. And I believe it's one hell of a privilege to be part of the ongoing work of creation, as we all are. So, open up, buckle up, and let's get on that ride again. It's the best thing for you. Amen. Now, as promised, blue boat home. Please try not to be seasick, but stand as you're willing and able. And join us. It's number 1060.